Okay, hello class. Today we have your finals Q&A. So let me give you some proper names that come out on your first 200. Muniers, or how do you pronounce it, Michelle? Muniers Liquor, Sergeant Braxton, Mr. Amori, Department of Public Works. So make sure you look at your proper names before you type it up, that you have them by your side, that you've warmed up, and this is your 200 Q&A, starts in the middle, number 1, final for 5 minutes. Have you ever spoken with any police officers out there?
Yes, I have.
How often do you speak with police officers?
Every day.
Is that because they come by while you are working at the store?
I guess so.
Do you see the same officers on a regular basis?
I see lots of different officers.
Are any of the officers familiar to you?
Yes, of course.
Is that because you've spoken to them?
I have, yes.
You've said hello to several of the officers?
Pretty much. A lot of them we know.
So often you will see the same officers?
Exactly.
Have you ever had any conversations with any police officer that goes beyond saying hello to them?
Yes, many times.
Since you've been working at Muniers Liquor, have you had any lengthy conversations with any police officers?
They come by and ask how I'm doing and things like that.
How do you feel your relationship with the police officers is in general?
Normal. I'm just a normal person.
Have any of the police officers, since you've been working at Muniers Liquor, ever discussed with you the topic of people who are loitering around the store?
No.
Have any police officers ever discussed with you the topic of selling alcohol to people who are already intoxicated?
No.
Have any police officers ever had a talk with you about selling alcohol to minors?
No, none.
Do you know a police officer by the name of Sergeant Braxton?
No.
Do you know some officers that you would not necessarily know the names of?
I've heard of Braxton, but we've never spoken.
What have you heard about him?
Then he comes around the neighborhood and he watches really carefully and stuff like that.
Is that the only thing you've heard about Sergeant Braxton?
That's the only thing I heard about him.
Who did you hear that from?
I heard it from Mr. Amori. One time he mentioned his name.
Do you know the names of all of the police officers that you see when you're working at Muniers Liquor?
Some of them I know by name and some I know by face.
So if Sergeant Braxton walked by and stopped in the store while you were working, would you know it was him?
No.
So is it possible that you've spoken to him but not known his name?
I don't know who he is.
Can you take a look at this page I'm showing you, please?
Yes.
It's the page with the narrative on it. Are these out of order?
This one isn't.
We're looking now at page 4 of 4. Would you just read through that page, please?
Yes, I have read it.
Were you working at Muniers Liquor on December 11th, 2014?
No, ma'am.
Do you know who was working there that day?
I wasn't there.
How do you know that you weren't there on December 11th, 2014?
Because I wasn't working.
Do you know for a fact that you weren't there?
Yes. I've only worked there for 8 months.
When did you stop working for your brother-in-law?
April 26, 2015.
When did you stop working for your dad?
That was in April of the same year.
When did you first file your application to have the liquor license at Muniers Liquor transferred to your name?
In February of last year.
Have you ever received any verbal or written warnings from the Department of Public Works in regards to cleaning the sidewalk in front of the store?
Yes, I have.
What have you been cited for at the store?
One time I got a ticket for not having a garbage can out front.
You were cited for not having a garbage can in front of the store?
Yes.
Was that a verbal warning or were you ticketed?
It was a citation I had to pay.
Is that the only citation you have received at the store?
Somebody told us we need to clean the sidewalk out front.
Do you know who told you that?
No.
Do you know how long ago that was?
About 6 months ago.
What did the person tell you?
That we have to clean it.
Did he tell you how much of an area outside the store you are expected to clean?
He told me that all around the side of the store and about a quarter of a block up, it all belongs to us.
Have you done anything in response to what that person told you?
Yes, we have.
What have you done to comply with the verbal citation?
We bought a hose and pretty much every day we hose it down now.
How many times a day do you hose it down?
Every morning.
Do you actually hose it down when you are working there?
We have a guy who does it for us.
What time of the morning does the sidewalk area get hosed down?
Every day at 8 in the morning.
What is the hose hooked up to?
There's a faucet in the back behind the store.
You run the hose all the way from the back of the store to the sidewalk?
Yes.
Do you personally ever hose down the sidewalk?
No, but I have swept.
How often do you sweep outside the store?
I sweep every day.
How many times a day do you sweep the sidewalk out front of the store?
It depends. Sometimes 2 or 3 times.
What do you do with the debris that you sweep up?
Put it in the garbage can.
Do you know any of the tenants who live in the same building that the liquor store is in?
Just a few of them.
Have you ever had any discussions with them regarding any kind of a problem in the store?
No, I never have.
Have the tenants ever complained to you about anything with respect to the store?
No, they never have.
Do you know the tenants by name or just? And we'll get ready for your second. Okay, so this is going to be your 200 Q&A final number 2. Proper names. You have KCPD, LaCressa, Noreen, room 5, exhibit 6, Mr. Tang, exhibit 9, and Jasmine Vaisari. And it's your final, starts in the middle, 200 number 2 for 5 minutes, you all. Do you recall if she was living there on February 1st, the day the police came in?
I don't remember if she was living there at that time or not.
When you were arrested on February 1st, you were booked for carrying a bag of meth, which they found on you, correct?
Yes, but it wasn't mine. I was holding it for one of the girls.
It says here that it was found in your purse, correct?
I wasn't holding it on my body. It was in my room.
But it was your purse the police found it in, correct?
Yes.
Is that something you do?
Is what something I do?
Do you typically hold narcotics for the girls that come in?
Well, the girl that told me to hold it, she was getting arrested for loitering on the stairway.
As she was being placed under arrest, she asked you to hold her methamphetamines for her?
She told me to hold it for her. It wasn't enough to convict someone.
How would you know what is enough to convict someone?
Because I went to jail.
You went to jail for running a house of prostitution, correct?
For that and for the meth.
And you weren't convicted for the drug possession?
The judge said my case was discharged.
Do you think a manager of a hotel should be holding drugs for occupants of the building?
She told me to hold it for her. It was just a tiny amount, and I wasn't worried about it because I don't do drugs.
Again, do you think that a hotel manager should hold drugs for occupants of the hotel?
But I'm not the manager.
You were the night desk clerk, weren't you?
Yes.
So you were an employee of the hotel, is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you think the night desk clerk should be holding drugs for occupants of the building?
Probably not.
Do you recall an incident that occurred on April 13 of last year?
I don't know. What are you talking about?
Well, the KCPD officers arrested 2 known prostitutes inside the hotel, correct?
I remember.
Do you remember the names of the 2 women who were arrested?
That was LaCressa and Noreen.
So you do remember now what happened.
They didn't arrest them inside the hotel, but they put that down in the report.
What do you remember about the incident on April 13th?
The cops rang the bell. They ran upstairs and shouted, open the door, police.
Did you open the door for the officers?
They made me open the door for them, and they said the girls were loitering in front of my door.
Do you recall what you said in response to that?
I can't tell people to leave the streets, and I didn't know they were loitering in front of my door because I don't have an outside window.
Do you recall what happened to the 2 women?
The cops took the 2 girls to jail, but they didn't take me.
Why do you believe you weren't arrested with the 2 women?
Because I wasn't renting out rooms in April.
LaCressa told the police that she was registered in room 5, correct?
Yes.
You do remember her telling the police that?
I remember that.
And what did you tell the police in response to LaCressa saying that?
I told them she didn't have a room.
Why would she tell the police that she did?
Because she didn't want to go to jail.
In the police report, it says you told them she had rented the room on a short-term basis and her rental had ended when she left with the male who was her guest in the room, correct?
I never said that. She said that to the police.
Well, if you take a look at this report, it says that you said that.
I didn't say that.
So if we were to look at the daily hotel log for that day, we would find that LaCressa was not in room 5 on April 13th. Is that right?
She was not.
Are you quite sure that she wasn't in a room on that day?
I am sure. She had a room sometimes once a week for $175, but she didn't have it in April.
On May 8th, do you remember another incident at the hotel?
No.
Police officers rang the bell and you were there and they asked to see the hotel registry. Do you recall that now?
Yes, I remember.
Can you tell me what you recall about the incident?
I showed the police officer the registry.
Did you show them a list that looked something like Exhibit 6?
If I rented a room, I had one of these on the clipboard.
What else do you recall about the incident?
I remember the police coming, but I didn't go to jail.
Now, you said you had stopped renting rooms in February, so why were you renting rooms on May 8th?
I didn't rent rooms in May.
You just said in your previous answer that you did, correct?
I said if I was renting a room to someone, I would have this on a clipboard.
So you didn't rent a room to anyone that day.
I didn't mean to say that I rented a room to anyone.
What were you doing manning the desk that day?
I was answering the bell because Mr. Tang was sleeping.
Looking at Exhibit 9, which you've just been handed, can you tell me what that is?
It's all the girls who I know.
What do you mean it's the girls that you know?
It's the prostitutes that I know.
So all of the women listed on here are prostitutes, correct?
Yeah.
Have they all stayed in the hotel at one time?
4 of them have.
Are you referring to the 4 names at the top of the page?
Yes.
Do you know if a Jasmine Vaisari has stayed at the... Okay, and we'll get ready for your 180s. So you have on your 180 number 1 final, Mr. Wild, Tahoe, BMW, anti-theft is hyphenated, add-ons hyphenated. And this will be then, 180 number 1 starts in the middle for 5 minutes. Final exam. Do you recall where that initial contact took place with you and Mr. Wild?
We met at his place in Tahoe.
You drove up to Tahoe to meet with him?
He asked me if I would be willing to make the drive.
Okay, and do you recall what you talked to Mr. Wild about at that first meeting?
No, not really.
Did you ask him anything?
I asked about the BMW he said he could get for us. It was exactly what we wanted, and I asked about all of the options, and I went through a list of items we could get if we ordered it from the factory, which is what we intended to do at that time. And
so you do recall something of that meeting, don't you?
yes, I guess I do.
Do you remember now what Mr. Wild told you at that first meeting?
Well, he took our list of the items we wanted, and he said that to get all the things that we wanted, we would have to go directly through the factory, and it would take us about 6 weeks before we would get the car.
Was there anything unusual about your requests?
Well, we wanted everything put together as a package. That isn't unusual, though.
Okay, so most of the options you were asking about are standard on a BMW, aren't they?
No, some are, but things like the anti-theft system are extra add-ons.
Okay, after that first meeting with Mr. Wild, did you ever go back to discuss the car with him?
Yes. The day that we were going to place the order from him, I went up there to give him the check.
Okay, did you have a second conversation with Mr. Wild at that time?
Yes. It was related to the fact that I wanted the car as soon as possible.
Okay, did you pay him any money at that time?
Yes. I paid him the exact amount that he said was needed so that he could put in the order for the car.
Do you recall if you paid him by cash or check?
I gave him a check.
How much did he tell you he needed from you at that time?
He told me he would need the full amount, excluding tax and license.
Okay, how much did you write out the check to him for?
I wrote out the check to him in the amount of $60,000.
Is that the amount he told you he would need to process the order?
Yes, it is. He said he would place the order that same day, and it would take about 2 weeks from that day for the car to arrive.
Is there a second page attached to the papers I just handed you?
Yes, there is. It looks like it is the receipt he gave me for the check I gave him.
Okay. On this date in September 2012, you paid Mr. Wild the money for the BMW. Is that correct?
Yes, that's when I gave him the check for it.
And this is the receipt he gave you. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, the check you gave Mr. Wild in the amount of $60,000, did that clear the bank at some point?
Yes, it did.
Now, when you gave Mr. Wild that check, what did he promise you in return?
He promised me I would get the car within 2 weeks and that the car would have all the extra items on it that I had asked for.
Okay. Did he tell you where he was going to order the car from?
I thought it was going to come from the factory.
You thought it was, or did he tell you it was?
I don't remember if he told me that or not.
At any point, did he explain to you how his business operated?
No, I never asked him about that.
Okay. Did he give you any reason for the payment being made prior to him ordering the car?
He said that he needed the money up front in order to get the car. He said he needed the exact amount in order to get the car.
Okay. So did you get the car that you ordered from him?
No, I did not.
Okay. So what happened after you paid him the money and got a receipt from him?
Well, the car wasn't due to arrive until the middle of September. I don't recall the exact date he gave me, but it was supposed to get there 2 weeks after the day I paid him for it. That is when he told me it would arrive from the factory, and at that time he told me the car was going to be a couple days late getting there.
At any point, did he give you the name or the location of the factory?
No.
Did you talk to him again about what was going on with the car?
Yes, I did.
What did he tell you about the car?
There was always a reason as to why it was late. One day he said the factory moved, and the next day he would say that it was on a truck and on the road. One day he said,
Okay. And then we have your second 180 final. Bob Jones, proper names: Maine, Dallas, Texas, El Paso, James Brown, Mr. Brown, Mr. West, Dallas, Tom Smith, Chico's Tacos, Montana, Center Stage, and McKinney. And it starts at the very beginning, you all. This is going to be your second 180 Q&A for 5 minutes. And it starts at the very beginning, 5 minutes, you all. Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
my name is Bob Jones, Jones.
What is your occupation, Mr. Jones?
I am selling cars right now, but I am also a musician.
Would you speak a little louder, please?
Okay,
Where do you live, Mr. Jones?
I live at 224 Main, Dallas, Texas.
How is it that you are in El Paso today?
I was summoned here by the government to become a government witness.
Are you a government witness at this time?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Do you know James Brown, who is the defendant in this case?
Yes, I do.
Will you identify him?
He is sitting at the table and he is wearing a dark suit.
When was the first time you had occasion to meet Mr. Brown?
I met him in July.
What was the occasion on which you met Mr. Brown?
I was meeting with some friends and he was there.
Between that July meeting and August 23, did you have occasion to see Mr. Brown?
Yes, I did.
How many times did you see him?
I saw him 4 or 5 times.
What was the nature of those meetings?
They were just friendly meetings.
At these meetings, did you ever participate in drugs together?
Yes, we did.
What was the nature of the drugs?
We got high a couple of times on pot.
Have you ever sold drugs of any kind to Mr. Brown?
No, I have not.
Has he ever sold any to you?
No, he has not.
Have you ever used him in the sale of drugs?
No, I have not.
Have you ever used anybody else in the sale of drugs?
Yes, I have.
Were you contacted by Mr. West to provide some drugs for him?
Yes, I was.
When were these arrangements first made?
At the beginning of August.
Had you ever had drug dealings with Mr. West prior to the sale that was planned?
No, I had not.
You had never had previous dealings with Mr. West?
No, but we knew each other.
You knew each other?
Right.
How did you happen to know him?
He was dealing back then, and I knew he was dealing. He was dealing in Dallas.
He was dealing in Dallas.
Right.
I see. Could you tell us the approximate time when your initial contact was made with Mr. West?
It was around August 5th.
Was Mr. Brown a party to any of these dealings?
No, sir.
Did you ever mention to Mr. Brown the dealings that you had with Mr. West?
No, I did not.
What was your plan for obtaining the drugs and delivering them to Mr. West? How did you plan to travel?
I was going to borrow a car and drive out and get the drugs and take them to Mr. West.
Why were you going to borrow a car?
Because I did not have one of my own at the time.
From whom were you going to borrow the car?
I borrowed a car from Tom Smith.
How long had you known Mr. Smith?
I met him last June.
Who introduced you to him?
The same friends.
Now, did the plans that were made in early August to deliver the drugs to Mr. West go through as planned?
No, they did not.
What occurred?
A partner of mine was going to pick up the drugs and take them to Mr. West. I tried to stay as far out of the picture as I could, but his car broke down and I was the only one left to do it. So there was a delay of about a week.
Now, when it became clear that you were going to have to deliver the drugs yourself, was Mr. Brown a part of this plan?
No, he was not.
Now, I direct your attention to the evening of August 21. Did you have occasion to meet Mr. Brown on that day?
Yes, I did.
Where did you meet him?
At Chico's Tacos,
Which Chico's Tacos?
the one on Montana.
Did you have an arrangement to meet him there?
No, we just happened to meet.
What, if anything, was said between yourself and Mr. Brown at this time?
We were talking about music mainly.
What did you have in common with Mr. Brown?
We are both musicians.
During this conversation with Mr. Brown at Chico's Tacos, was anyone else present?
A little bit later, Tom Smith came in.
What, if anything, was said to Mr. Smith, and what did he say?
I talked to him about the use of his car for a couple of days, and I said I would give him $50.
What did he say?
He said, okay.
Did Mr. Brown participate in this conversation?
No, he did not.
Now, after the conversation with Mr. Smith was completed, was there any further conversation with Mr. Brown?
Yes, there was.
What was that?
I was going up on a Wednesday, and I told James Brown about a place called Center Stage where they have a band playing. People go there to eat and have a good time. I asked him if he would like to come along because he could probably play his horn.
Where is this place located?
It is near McKinney.
Okay, you all, that concludes your finals. Good luck. I hope everybody does well. Don't forget to register early for your classes for the summer, okay? Have a great semester and a break.